3, we're going to talk about comparing the autonomic nervous system and the somatic nervous system. So when we speak of the somatic nervous system, we think about voluntary, okay? What we do every day willingly, as opposed to autonomic, which is our inner body being able to respond to stimuli and produce actions that will protect us. So when we talk about effectors, okay, and we look at where are the effectors of the skeletal of the somatic muscles of the somatic system. It's our skeletal muscles. That's our voluntary piece. That's what's going to cause the action. As opposed to the autonomic, it's things we don't control. Our smooth muscles, our heart, and our glands, endocrine or exocrine. If we look at where the cell bodies are, and I'm going to go to a picture in just a minute, the cell bodies are inside the CNS for the voluntary piece or the somatic versus out inside the CNS and also in the ganglion. And remember when we talked about ganglion, we talked about these are collections of cell bodies that are outside the CNS. And finally, the nerve fibers. So the axons primarily is what we're talking about there. There are some dendrites that are associated, and the axons extend all the way to the skeletal muscles. It's one piece. We don't have to, there's no interruption. In the autonomic side, though, it's like a two-step process. We have a wire or an axon before the ganglion where the cell bodies are, and one after, before it gets to its effector. And this is important to note because what happens when we are causing a reaction, okay, and we will release different neurotransmitters to get a different reaction. So let's go to the picture. Okay, so what we said was are effectors. So in the somatic pathways, it's going to be voluntary and it's going to be a muscle. Excuse me. In the autonomic pathway, it's going to be smooth muscle like that of your bowel. It might be your heart. It might be one of the glands. The cell bodies. So in the somatic pathway, the cell body is in the ganglion. Okay, remember that cell body's outside the CNS. That doesn't. Okay. Versus in the autonomic side, the side we don't control, it's here, okay, and then it's also here. So it's a two-step process for us. So the ganglion and also in the CNS. See, there's some here. Okay, and the neurons, the fibers, this is a one whole step, okay, as opposed to this being two-step, okay, two-step, one here and one here. The blue represents here is the sensory piece. This is the sensory information. But when it's coming out, it stops here, makes a decision, and keeps going. A preganglion and a postganglionic fiber. Much of the autonomic pathway is regulated by reflexes. And those reflexes then help us are controlled by centers in various parts of the nervous system, the hypothalamus, the brain stem, the spinal cord. All of those are examples. Motor impulses are sent out in the cranial or spinal nerves. So there's two parts to the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. I think we will go to a picture here because I think it will be most helpful. I'm going to go on to the picture. Okay. So there's two parts to the sympathetic nervous system while I explain this. And there is the para, which is our 3 C's, if you remember, versus our sympathetic, which is our 3 F's. So the exit point for the 3 C's is either the cranial area or the sacral area. Okay, the exit point for the sympathetic directly comes out of the thoracolumbar area. Now remember when we talked about the plexus, we said there was no plexus in here? That's part of the reason why there's no plexus in there. So the sympathetic side is going to come out here and here. The parasympathetic side is going to come out here or here. Remember, this is our calm, cool, collected side, and the sympathetic side is our 3 F's, okay? Fight, flight, fright. Let's go back to the notes and just emphasize that a little bit. Okay, so that's looking at the 2 pathways. Now, every organ except the adrenal glands has 2 wires to it. I like to refer to it as a red wire and a blue wire. One is the sympathetic wire, red, and the blue wire is parasympathetic. So depending on what's happening in your life, the control of that organ, remember we don't have any control over this ourselves. We don't say, I'm going to make my heart rate increase. What happens is we control it by our inner nervous system or autonomic nervous system. Now these 2 systems, sympathetic and parasympathetic, do not work antagonistically. One's in play or the other's in play. So if it's a sympathetic nervous system and we're under great stress, we have our 3 F's in place. If it's a parasympathetic under normal conditions, like you're sitting in my class listening to me, that's your calm, cool, collected. When you go to the test center to write an exam, that's your 3 F's. Now there's reasons for that. I mean, we're just not trying to make life difficult. There's good reasons for it. Because your body responds with your body to help you through certain situations. The sympathetic, it's going to have its effectors are your smooth muscle, your cardiac, and your glands. Your parasympathetic is the same except the blood vessels and the sweat glands. So let's look at that. So when your sympathetic nervous system is in place, it's going to increase your heart rate. And the reason it increases your heart rate, is to get blood to your cells. It dilates your bronchioles because it wants to make sure you get enough oxygen in, and we need that oxygen to make ATP to make your muscles work. Your blood vessels in the sympathetic side, under the 3 F's, are going to shift blood away from things that are not vital. Okay, so it's going to take it away from your skin and your organs that you don't need to worry about right now, like your bowels, your ovaries, that kind of thing. It dilates blood to your skeletal muscles so that if you have to run, you're going to have the energy to make you run. And it also puts your blood pressure up. And with your blood pressure being up, it's going to help your muscles get the energy that they need to run. It stimulates your sweat glands to perspire because obviously we want to cool ourselves. It's going to raise your blood sugar. Your serum means blood, glucose, because obviously we need glucose to help you make energy. But what it does do, and this is a really important thing to remember when we think about people under great amount of stress, is it shuts down your digestive tract, because the first thing it says is, oh my gosh, I don't want to digest my Kraft dinner. And think about how you feel when you're upset and you're trying to eat. You feel like a big lump is there. And that lump comes from the fact that nothing's moving in there. And it also shuts down your urinary system when you're stressed. On the 3C side, what happens is our heart rate is normal and steady. Our bronchioles are normal and steady. Doesn't change our blood vessels, doesn't change our sweat glands. It actually lowers our glucose. It allows our digestive system to work at its maximum and your bladder. The key to remember is that under stress, you shut down those visceral activities that are related to your digestive system and your urinary system. This is key when you think about people who are under stress, but it's not real stress, like a bear chasing them. It's stress in the work environment. It's stress from a stressful marriage. All of that stuff, and you can see why people get digestive problems. You can see why they get high sugars. You can see why they're not managing. So important to remember when you're thinking about your patients. You can see I'm a bit passionate about that. Okay, so we looked at that picture, and now this is another picture to help you see it because I've separated it here. It helps you see that um, this is the cranial sacral, and you'll notice that the cranial sacral has the two wires that we talked about, but they're very long here, and this is the parasympathetic. Okay, and they're very long, and then they're short when they get to the organ, very short at the organ, versus the sympathetic, which has a very short first wire and a long second wire. Okay, a long second wire. Two steps.